Hello everyone, it's Vivi and welcome to another Sly Cooper video. On Twitter, I got tagged on a very interesting discovery. Sly Cooper Thieves In Time's concept presentation, or in other words, its pitch meeting, got discovered right out of the blue. From what I heard, this discovery originates from the Sly Modding Discord. We have a couple of people to thank for. We have Tabriz for the tag on Twitter. Thank you for that, by the way. We got users iMomentumori and One Sneaky Chilla, who also runs No Context Sly on Twitter, to thank for. Both these awesome people were able to conserve such development history of Sly Cooper. So, looking at this zip file right here, file name says Sly Cooper 4 Time Bandits Greenlight Presentation. Within this folder, there's an actual picture of details of a PPT file, which stands for a PowerPoint presentation. Authors, Sanzaru Games, last saved by Sony, Microsoft Office PowerPoint, there you go. The date is what gets me intrigued. Content created, I believe, on December 10th, 2008. Last saved on October 13th, 2009. The last date is also the actual date of when the presentation was held. As for why this gets me really intrigued, I can't help but wonder if this is the presentation Sanzaru brought up multiple times in past interviews. How they showed Sony this presentation, and how they showed them a sandbox type demo for them to try out. If you're not too sure what I'm talking about, here are two clips. One from IGN's interview from 2011 with president of Sanzaru Glenn Egan. The other interview features lead designer Matt Kramer from 2012, I believe.
And back in 2008, we were working with Sony on Secret Agent Clank, and we were kind of thinking about what we're going to do next. So we went and got ourselves a PlayStation development kit. We put together a prototype. They kind of liked it, and that led to us working on the collection. And that went really well too. And that really gave both Sony and Sucker Punch kind of the confidence in Sanzaru that they could feel comfortable with working on the next installment, Thieves In Time.
Well, I think at the time we were doing a Secret Agent Clank port from PSP to PS2, and then we had the idea about doing Sly Cooper. We knew that they were busy with Infamous. We threw together this big PowerPoint presentation, what the story would be, kind of what you would be doing, but we also had a demo. And the demo basically consisted of a small little area. It showed Sly Cooper, what would he look like on the PS3, what would a Sly Cooper level look like on the PS3, and how you would move around the space. So we put that together, brought him over, showed him the PowerPoint, and then it was like, oh, and here you could play it. Whoa, a demo too, so pretty cool. Good. So and they took that demo and actually showed it to Sucker Punch, and they're like, who made this?
As for the second clip, the one with Matt Kramer, he literally brought up the word PowerPoint. However, he stated that it was for the PlayStation 3. The PPT file within this zip folder, the name itself, doesn't really convey the idea of a Sly game on the PlayStation 3. Rather, Time Bandits was about a sequel for a handheld device, what they used to codename NGP, Next Generation Portable Entertainment. As time passed, it turned out to be the PlayStation Vita, which launched on February 15th, 2012 in North America. First thing I'd like to go over, we have three images of what I think would be how they envisioned Sly Cooper 4 originally. The style they showcased to Sony is very similar to the one in Thieves In Time. The difference here, if we compare to Sly Cooper Thieves In Time on PlayStation 3, there's less thick outlines on the surroundings. Sly is the only focus in this picture. He has thick black outline on him. As for the setting itself, it's very reminiscent of feudal Japan in Thieves In Time. The van parked right there, I mean, it really gives me Sly 1 vibes. This one, I can't help but think of episode 4 in Thievius Raccoonus, Sly 1 in other words. Sly has his left leg patch. As for his final model in Thieves In Time, he has both a backpack and a leg pouch. All these pictures were part of their PowerPoint presentation in this zip folder, which we'll dive straight into actually. As you can see, the presentation seems to suggest that this happened on October 13th, 2009. The title says Sly Cooper the ThiefNet. Were they going with the name ThiefNet for this game or Time Bandits? I'm gonna stick to the latter. ThiefNet in this case would be strongly related to the social gaming aspect they had envisioned for Time Bandits originally. We'll explore this idea even more as we go through this presentation. So, looking at the stuff we have here, concept presentation, NGP specific features, initial global discussion, and planning. Do recall this was a passionate team that approached Sony and tried pitching their idea of a sequel in hopes for it to get greenlit. Title summary, platform NGP, which later, as I said, turned out to be the Vita, just for a reminder. For the master version of this game, it was planned for August 2011. The master version would be, I believe, the closest thing to the final release of the game. So in other words, their imagined sequel would have released earlier instead of 2013 with Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. Lots of emphasis on the social aspect of gaming here. Friends list, social networking, there it is. And we got login. Why choose Sly out of any other IP back then? They thought Sly had or could have many features that would appeal to a gaming audience. Trading, stealing, collecting, yeah. Collectathon, collection is also something they had envisioned a lot. Gadgets, minigames, stealth. They believed that handheld and platform games would be a good fit. Examples they used: Daxter, Ratchet & Clank, and even Little Big Planet. Speaking of Daxter, in this zip folder there's a text file with a bit more details from the PowerPoint presentation. There's emphasis on the reception of Daxter on PSP, how it was the third best-selling PSP title overall and the best-selling first-party product by Sony. These two facts seemed to suggest to the team that character-based platform games were better received on handhelds than on consoles. Fun fact, as of 2008, speaking of Daxter, 2 years after its release, the game sat at 2 million sales. As of today, over 4 million. There it is. Emphasis on collection and social networking. You'll later discover that they didn't want to just make another Sly game, but something new, while also, of course, maintaining core gameplay. Sly Cooper to them is a mix of Batman and Lupin. Not too often I see comparison like this. As for the picture on the far right, that one has another interesting story behind it. They pretty much borrowed this piece of concept from Joe Madureira. The name maybe doesn't ring a bell. Joe Madureira co-founded Vigil Games back in 2005. Eventually they got purchased by THQ and brought us Darksiders 1 and 2. As for Vigil Games today, it's now defunct. So speaking of 2005, they nearly made a Sly Cooper PSP prototype, nearly partnered with NCSoft, who are best known for having published Guild Wars. The game was far from even being conceptualized beyond sketching. As for why this game never made it beyond prototyping, well, the team at Vigil Games simply had bigger ambitions back then. All we have on this Sly Cooper prototype from 2005, well, this picture right here, which was used in Sanzaru's PowerPoint presentation, and another handful of concepts. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, these old concepts from 2005 look real good. Don't be mistaken, by the way, these pictures right here are not from the PowerPoint presentation. We only had one, which was borrowed. As for the rest, you know, especially this one with Dark Sly looking epic, well, this was shared by Joe Madureira on Facebook 7 years ago. Fun fact, he even wrote us a small story surrounding these concepts. So, back in ancient times when Vigil was just forming and Darksiders was but a twinkle in our eye, we created a pitch for Sony to do a Sly Cooper game for PSP. Unfortunately, all I could find were these low-res files, and there are a bunch missing which I will try to track down. Pretty different style for me and incredibly fun. These were all done circa 2005. And obviously, all rights and characters belong to Sony, so don't do anything crazy with these to get me in trouble. So with that fun fact out of the way, let's go back to the actual PowerPoint presentation. 50% traditional Sly Cooper gameplay. This is for the overall breakdown of their initial pitch. 30% focus on social aspect of the game. Friends, collectibles, trading. Here's a cool one. 20% hideout gameplay, which will be tied to ThiefNet. You can decorate, customize, and protect your base. Protect? Since when do we have to protect our base, you might ask? Well, since you're asking, here's a breakdown of their idea. Single-player adventure, player hideout. Customize your character, personalize your hideout, create and upgrade your hazard room. Customize your character, I'm going to say it right now. Bring this feature in a future game if that ever happens. that is. The next thing on the right, other players' hideout. You can break in, go through their custom-made hazard room, steal treasure, and gain AXP. The gist of things, well, collect, customize, and steal. Item acquisition, yeah, this was entirely something different looking at Thieves in Time. Single player experience, not too surprised there. We can gift items to friends. QR codes even. This whole thing with QR codes reminds me of the whole CTR nitro fueled thing. For example, the one with Sour Patch Kids. Unfortunately, these things with CTR back then, they were pretty much limited to the US. QR codes would have also been tied to rare seasonal events. This is according to their text file within the zip folder. Christmas, Halloween, and stuff like that. Leave items in unsecure areas for casual browsers. You know, to encourage visitors, or in other words, to enrage players. Trade and sell through ThiefNet. And now, here's an example of how you edit or customize a hazard room. It's grid-based. You can position walls, death triggers, traps. When someone would fail your challenge or die in your hazard room, you'd be notified through social media. We got Murray with monster truck races. You would tilt the screen to steer. As for the rear touchscreen, well, that was for accelerating and braking. The PS Vita later called it the rear touchpad. Bentley's Spark Runner. Right off the bat, this made it into the PS3 reiteration of Sly Cooper 4. Sly Cooper Thieves in Time in this case. They used the 6-axis on the PS3 controller. Spark Runner would have been one of at least 5 hacking minigames. In Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, looking at the minigames, we had Spark Runner, Bentley's Alter Ego, and System Cracker. So in the final product, we had 3 minigames. Safe cracking originally would have had a tilting function. In Thieves in Time, they implemented the tilting function via the 6-axis as well as the use of the right analog stick. We have another slide that goes over the Binocucom. As you can see, it's very, very early stuff. Within the zip folder, well, within the text file, the Binocucom would have had different filters to help you see in the dark, find hidden items, and even breakable paths. I take it they took the idea of finding different items filter and implemented it in episode 40 Thieves, where you had to look for Salim's DNA imprints. QR codes for item acquisition, I believe they call it element in this case. Ads, web pages, doing so would trigger an instant download. Matt Kramer's voice was actually present in this clip. As for the art direction, it relied on Paul Sullivan's concepts. Fun fact, Sullivan has a personal webpage which features many concepts of Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. Ancient Egypt, it still haunts us. Egypt was planned originally as episode 1 and then turned into a never-released DLC.
The original first episode of Sly Cooper Thieves in Time was supposed to be Egypt. Okay. With Sly Tutankhamun. Yeah. And then Egypt was going to be a DLC episode. Okay. Yeah. So that was always the intention, and then we never got to finish that out. We have the story. We have the whole episode done. On paper form. Of course.
As for the numbers, we have budget and all that, how the previous games sold and its rating. We have a future opportunity slide. This was before Sanzaru was given the chance to remaster the trilogy for the PlayStation 3 and Vita. There was, back then, the idea of 3D enhanced for Sly 3. Originally, the PS2 version did have a 3D feature with those red and blue glasses. Bentley called it the Depth Optimizer Goggles for certain missions and Master Thief challenges. 3D did make its way into the collection for Sly 3, of course if your TV supports 3D. We got risk and success factors, emphasis put on broad audience as the target, and reinvention of the series, not just another Sly Cooper game. As for the text file in the folder, the part about the broad audience, they believed social networking features would do just that. All this presentation just goes to show how much love and dedication the team had for Sly Cooper. The mere fact we even got Thieves in Time after all this, it's incredible, it's awesome. What's even cooler here, they had originally envisioned co-op DLC episodes. Now I wonder, we had an Egypt DLC for story purposes, that never happened. A co-op DLC. I really wonder how that would have turned out. We have some bit of extra detail on ThiefNet. Online hideouts would have 2 levels, one of which is simply decoration, bragging rights. The other is challenging other players with your hazard room. What this hideout would contain: items acquired in single-player and online play. Geographical location of these players would also influence the type of function these treasures would have. Stealing treasure from other players would aid you in multiple ways, giving you new functionality, new pieces for customization, and can also act as currency. Higher the XP of the player, the more the treasure would seem to cost. Here's more details on how stealing actually works. First off, you access a friends list or choose a random player's hideout. You can then attempt to go through their hazard room. If you make it through and capture the treasure, you gain XP and other things. If you fail, you get money for your efforts, but the experience goes to the owner of the hideout. Next up, we got examples of story episodes. This one would have been a Scooby-Doo-like haunted house cover-up parody, with a bat villain. Dracula, I guess? As for the artwork, it's still from Paul Sullivan. Fun fact, before Thieves in Time was a thing, there was Sly Cooper Network of Thieves. If by any chance you were friends with Matt Kramer on Facebook, you would find a post made by him specifically mentioning Network of Thieves. The bat would be called Mortimer, with the setting in Transylvania. By the looks of things, it resembled Sly 1's gameplay style, how you would have to unlock jobs in multiple different sectors. It is unknown if this idea was ever pitched to Sony. As for why this got canned? Well, it's simply because they started working on Thieves in Time and this got left behind. That's all we know. Another example for a story episode would be Creature from the Black Lagoon, a simple-minded alligator being controlled. I recall seeing this artwork by Sullivan, and I wondered what this place was all about. Welp, turns out it was meant for this type of episode. So all in all, out of all this, we got Sly Cooper Thieves in Time on the PlayStation 3 and a Vita version with cross-buy. What cross-buy means, if you purchase the PS3 version for example, you get the Vita version for free. Sadly, a good chunk of what they had envisioned originally did not make its way into Thieves in Time. Looking at the dates 2008 to 2009, that's like 4 years of development at first glance. But you have to realize that transitioning from the Vita version, the thing they had envisioned originally, to the PS3 version, that would have caused an internal delay. Heck, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time was originally planned for 2012, but got pushed to 2013. That was Sony's way of ensuring that players would have a variety of content, they call it, after the holidays. And to finish off the video, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. Would you have liked to see a more social interactive style Sly Cooper game? What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, I've been Vivi, and thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.